Are playoff beards dying? Because I feel like they're no longer as prevalent or as, I guess, maybe unruly, unkempt as they once were. I feel like playoff beards are a dying art. What say you?
I say you're correct. That is a factual thing that has changed over the years. Playoff beards obviously were huge in the 80s. They got bigger and bigger and bigger. You saw Joe Thornton do them in recent years. It became a thing that even teams outside of hockey started doing. The 2013 Red Sox did playoff beards. 2005 LA Galaxy, 2010 LA Galaxy would do playoff beards, and that just became a thing. It was inspired by hockey, started with hockey. You asked what happened to them. I did a little research.
Okay.
In 2015, you know who Mark Lazarus is?
Yes, the Chicago Blackhawks writer.
No. Different Mark Lazarus.
The NBC Sports guy?
NBC Sports chairman. In 2015, famously, who held the NHL rights.
And NBC.
He lobbied to discourage playoff beards because it hindered the ability for viewers to recognize players. Per the Chicago Tribune, June 19th, 2015, NBC Sports chairman Mark Lazarus is thrilled about the growth of hockey on NBC, but he has one request to its players. Please shave during the postseason. Lazarus says he has lobbied the NHL and its players to end the tradition of playoff beards. He says the excess facial hair hurts players' recognition for fans, perhaps hindering the development of new stars during the highest-rated games of the season. Quote, the players don't like this, but I wish they would all stop growing beards in the postseason, Lazarus said. Let's get their faces out there. Let's talk about how young and attractive they are, what model citizens they are. Hockey players truly are one of a kind among professional athletes. I don't love where that's headed. I know it's a tradition and superstition, but I think the beards do hurt recognition. They have a great opportunity with more endorsements or simply more recognition with fans saying that guy looks like the kid next door.
What the fuck is the energy behind these quotes?
I'm not loving all of these quotes. Shout out NBC.
Making assumptions.
It's my family
I'm
forever.
for sure making assumptions.
There's light assumption to watch on that.
Yeah, I hate the energy behind a lot of what's said there. And the playoff beard tradition is one of the best traditions in sports. Leave it to a fucking suit and a guy who no longer has the rights to the NHL to have a horrible idea on policing playoff beards.
I disagree too with the idea of, hey, you got to be clean shaven. I think that whatever gets people interested in somebody gets them in the door. If you say, wait, Joe Thornton, that's a crazy player. Who's that guy on the Sharks, the defense? But Brent Burns? Okay, yeah. Cool. And then you're following Brent Burns. No, I wasn't actually asking. And then you're following Brent Burns and you know who he is. And you get into the Sharks and all these things. Anything can be your gateway into hockey. If it's a silly beard, let it be a silly beard.
And like the playoff beards add to the lore of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think that helps get people into the door. I just, like, Mark Lazarus, need to know his thoughts on fucking tattoos, because I bet he has some bad opinions on tattoos. He's making a lot of assumptions and like really grading character on outward appearances.
Yeah, I would have asked them to not include the part about that guy looks like the guy next door or the boy next door.
You said you want to know his opinion on tattoos. Like, I want to know his opinion on mandatory minimum sentencing.
Yeah, right. Go a little further there.
And like he also said, like, let's show these guys how handsome they are. Like, a lot of people are more handsome with beards.
That had a whole different energy to it.
Well, yeah, but
it was Steinbrenner-esque at best.
Yeah.
I will say one point that he did make fairly, because there was pushback on, well, playoff beards made people stars, or people became stars when they had playoff beards in the 80s. And he noted that the great Islanders teams of the 80s are credited with starting the tradition of playoff beards, blah, blah, blah. He noted that there weren't helmets or there weren't visors. So there weren't, so like you could see the whole thing. When you have helmets and visors, so argues Lazarus, it's more difficult to add in a beard and still be able to see the face.
I don't know. Like, but so I guess the question is, like, do you think that the league and the players bought into this? Because that's giving too much credit to Mark Lazarus, maybe.
I think so. I mean, we'd have to look at playoff beards per roster, but 2015 sounds about right for when it started to go away.
This seems like there'd be a paper trail, though, of like, hey, guys, Like if I'm just a player, I'm not listening to fucking.
Well, I bet there's a bunch of, you're not considering, there's probably a bunch of players who were doing it because they felt they had to.
Yeah.
And then once it was hey guys, you don't have to do playoff beards. Sweet. Fucking boss says I can't do a playoff beard.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
I think the pressure of doing the playoff beard maybe has been taken away.
Yeah, especially for the guys. Like I feel like there's a lot of people putting out the chat. There's just a lot of young guys who like, I can't grow a beard. I'm turning 26 this year. I can't grow a
And
beard
like
for my life.
a guy like Sidney Crosby was like mocked
Exactly,
mercilessly for years because his
Bad
facial
playoff
hair
beard. Tyler Sagan, terrible playoff beard.
Meanwhile, like, not that this really has any, but like, it's not like the playoff beard has anything to do. Like the best playoff beard right now, I'd say is Pat Maroon.
But that's like I guess he
always has a beard.
He always has a beard, but not as maybe as bushy or as thick. And you mentioned Zach Hyman, his mustache is a little fuller. But I don't know. Like I love the tradition. I want it to stick around, and it bums me out that it seems like it's kind of dying. The reason that I noticed was Evgeny Kuznetsov, of all people, because they showed an older headshot of Kuznetsov after he scored a couple games ago, and he had a beard, and then they cut to him on the bench, and he was like very clean shaven. And I was like, damn, now that I think about it, where have the playoff beards gone? So I'd like to reintroduce some pressure to please grow a playoff beard if you can.
Another thing to consider is that playoff beards in the late noughties were used for good. In 2009, Beardathon was started to raise money for charity, and in the first 4 years, they raised a ton of money. Like it became a thing where people were doing it the kind of like the like Movember style thing where people were growing playoff beards to raise money. So there's actual good that could come of it.
And like I think that what we should encourage is that the playoff beard doesn't necessarily have to be a beard. Like you can have a playoff mustache that just continuously grows through the playoffs. One of my favorite playoff beards in recent memory was Jaromir Jagr, who did the fucking Wolverine when he was on the Bruins.
He was also putting Just for Men in his beard, which was confusing behavior.
Oh yeah, he dyed it going into the Stanley Cup final, right?
He put Just for Men in. Yeah, it was right. Because at the media day, I asked him, did you put dye in your beard? And he said, gotta look tough, and winked at me.
Which
and
doesn't
I
make any
said,
sense because I think when you dye your beard, you look less tough. And nothing's more tough than like a good grizzly beard with some gray in it.
None of the interaction made sense. But he was very much, he was very confident in his answer, so I respected it.
We all silly like the mayor.